Welcome to our series, Moving America Forward. Each week we'll be focusing on America's entrepreneurs as they take us to new roads, new opportunities, new ways to fill the gaps left by today's failing companies. Our series will be looking at that and a lot more. So come with me and watch as the entrepreneurs of our nation move into the future.
And I'm Doug Llewelyn here in our studios in Los Angeles with our guest today, who is a remarkable attorney who specializes in elder law. And that, of course, means people who are basically 65 years of age and beyond. Her firm is called Senior Edge Legal. She's based in Boise, Idaho. I'd like you to meet her now. Her name is Susan Graham. Susan, welcome. Nice to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Doug.
You know, it's a pleasure. There's a fascinating subject to talk about, but before we get into it in depth, a little while ago you had a chance to answer some questions from William Shatner. Let's take a look at a brief portion of that now and see how it went, okay? Watch this.
I know you've been successful in your business, but what I would like to hear is just a brief capsule of exactly what it is you do and who do you do it for, and how do you see this helping America to move forward?
Mr. Shatner, Senior Edge Legal is a law firm that specializes in helping people who are retired or planning for retirement. Our clients are grateful for our help with developing clear and actionable estate plans that address their concerns about losing assets, family conflict, being a burden, and losing their independence as they age. We do this by helping seniors create estate plans to protect their independence, assets, and families. That, Mr. Shatner, is how we help move America forward.
You know, Susan, I'm fascinated by what you just had to say to Mr. Shatner. This is such an important area of law. I'm wondering what caused you to really want to focus on this so specifically, especially as you are now.
Well, in my own family, I had two grandmothers who were widows, and they lived alone in small towns. My parents didn't live nearby. They lived about 1,000 miles away, and the neighbors that were there to help my grandparents out, they slowly moved away and changed, and their friends, their contemporaries, died or had dementia or moved closer to their own families, so that left them vulnerable. And what happened is some strangers both befriended my grandmothers and worked their ways into their lives, so they actually moved into their homes. They stole property, they stole their money, they isolated them so that they couldn't associate with their few former friends. By the time my parents found out about it, it was too late to improve anything. And my grandmothers had miserable last years in their lives.
Wow.
I don't think that should happen to anybody. And so when I do estate planning with people, we make sure that that doesn't happen.
You know, I was going to point out this estate planning, wills, trusts, that's been a specialty of yours, and it was that way long before you really turned to elder law. Tell me what's so important for people to know about estate trusts and things of that nature that you point out to them?
Well, there are different types of estate planning. One is the traditional one, which is just death-oriented, and you can deal with that with a will. And another more important aspect in my mind is what happens if you don't die. Statistically, once you pass 65, you have a 75% chance of needing care before you die. That's in your home, assisted living, or nursing homes. And people just ignore that totally. And that's very expensive, because care in your home maybe it's $20 an hour or more for a bath aide or other people to come in to help you. Or if you end up being in assisted living, which means you can do a few things, but there are people there to help you, you're looking at $4,500 to $6,000 a month. And then if that's no longer adequate and you move into a skilled nursing care facility where you really need help with pretty much everything, my clients are paying $8,000 to $10,000 a month. And if you say, I want to stay at home and I don't want to go to a facility, you're talking about, for 24-hour care, $11,000 to $16,000 a month. These are huge bills that people have a tendency to ignore. So when we do planning, we plan with wills, and that again deals with death planning. So who's going to handle your affairs when you're gone, and then also who's a backup to them in case they're not around to do it, and who gets your stuff, who gets the painting, the ring, and that, plus who gets the other bulk of your assets. You know, does it all go to your spouse? Does it go to your kids? We also address what if they're young people. Young people in my world is anybody under 30. What I'm talking about is young people are legally an adult at age 18, and they're pretty much all idiots at age 18. All they know is how to spend money.
Right.
They don't know how to save anything.
Right.
So normally we say if there's somebody under 30, the money's managed for them until 30, because there's studies that show young people start to wake up in their late 20s. Wake up means get a job, don't bounce your checks, keep your car payment current. So that's the kind of things that's included in the will, and when you drop over dead, then we probate that will, meaning we go to court and have the judge say how things are going to be handled.
Right.
There's another way of doing the planning, and that's using a trust, a revocable trust. It covers all the same things that you cover under a will, but the trust also deals with if you become incapacitated. What I'm talking about is if the person who sets up the trust, let's say you set up a trust and you're in charge of your affairs, it says if you can't handle things, we have an informal way of having someone else take over. Usually you have a doctor, and let's say you're relying on your oldest child to handle things. If the doctor and your oldest child say, yes, you're incompetent, you can't handle things any longer, they can file some papers with a court and be instantly in charge without having to go through a court process to take over and handle things. So it's nice about a revocable trust, it'll cover the death issues, but it'll also cover the incapacity.
The life issues.
Right,
Is really what
which
it
is really,
Yeah.
so it's so important, because we all want to be independent and be in charge of our lives.
Let me ask you a question. For people who have trusts that they've established, and maybe they did it 10 years ago, do these trusts ever require being reevaluated and perhaps updated and changed, or not?
I encourage people to look at their estate plan every 3 to 5 years, whether they think they need to or not, because the law changes, their health can change, their relationship with people can change, and their money can change. One of those 4 things is bound to change in that time period. People don't pay attention, they just live life day after day. You only want these documents when everything goes wrong, when somebody's seriously ill and needs some help, or when somebody dies. So it's important to keep them up to date.
And when you say for people to look at them, it doesn't, it doesn't do as much good for them to look at it if the laws have changed, because they don't know that. Correct. So you're talking about having a professional look at it and right?
Go back to the lawyer who set that up for you and have them review it with you.
Talk to me about long-term care insurance. How important is that for people who are beyond 65? They've retired. Maybe they're 70 or older. It's important if they can get it, isn't it?
Absolutely. Again, remember, you have a 75% chance of needing care before you die.
Yeah.
So if you could have those kinds of odds, everybody go to Las Vegas all the time. So this is a real problem. So you have to figure out, how am I going to pay for that care? Because the average care lasts about 2.5, 3 years. You pay for it out of pocket until you run out of money. You pay for it with long-term care insurance. I'm a huge fan of that, because that means you can pay for it in your home or in a facility if that's appropriate. And then you start paying for it, though, if you're out of money and you don't have insurance, you've got to look to government programs to do that. And there are 2 main ones: Medicare, which is health insurance for people 65 and older, and there's a small residential piece in that. What I'm talking about is somebody falls down or has a stroke, they end up in a hospital for 3 or more days, they're admitted to the hospital, and then they get discharged to a rehabilitative facility. Medicare, that health insurance for people 65 and older, will pay 100% of their care in that facility. We don't have any money in this country, and our government doesn't seem to address those issues. So what's happening now is that when someone goes into a hospital, they might even be there 5 and 10 days. If they're not admitted and they're there for observation, and then they get discharged to the facility, Medicare won't pay a dime. And the bills that the families are stuck with that I've seen range between $6,000 and $40,000 for those 20 days. Assuming Medicare is going to cover it, that you were admitted and you were in the hospital for 3 days and then discharged. Then after the 20 days, Medicare, if you still need help in that rehabilitative facility, Medicare will pay for the next 80 days, and your supplemental insurance will pay for some. Then if after the 100 days you're still needing help, you're looking at Medicaid.
It's tough. It's really tough. You have to plan for this kind of care. I want to bring up a thing that you have founded called Boise at Home. First off, you are based in Boise. You service people in the state of Idaho,
That's
right?
correct. I'm licensed
What
in
is
Idaho.
Boise at Home?
Well, because of what I do and work with seniors primarily, I've discovered that they really need some additional help and they're not getting it. For instance, I have one client who couldn't drive, shouldn't be driving, but he did drive. He should never have been on the road, but he'd had no other alternatives. And he drove, he went through a stop sign, hit somebody, got sued for $1 zillion, ended up in bankruptcy and lost everything. That's just one example of problems seniors have as they age.
Right.
So Boise at Home is a nonprofit membership organization modeled after one in Boston called Beacon Hill Village. And what that provides for is when you become a member, and there's a paid membership, then you have the right to a variety of services that are provided by volunteers. And we also have a handyman on staff. So once you become a member, the handyman comes to your home and looks through the home with you and takes your to-do list and helps fulfill those for you so that you don't climb the ladder to try to change the battery in your smoke alarm and that kind of thing. We also provide transportation services with our vetted volunteers. We'll weed your garden, we'll plant flowers for you, we'll take the Christmas decorations down from the attic and bring them down and take them back up at the end of Christmas.
Sounds fascinating and fabulous. It's a great service.
It's wonderful, and people truly need that.
And people need it who are getting elderly and still living in their home. It helps keep them in their home.
Correct. We try to cover that gap between being super independent and needing some help. We don't provide the long-term residential care, but we keep them in their home at a much lower cost.
Susan, it's so neat to talk to you about this. I want to point out, Susan is one of those who is a member, has been named a super lawyer in her practice in Boise, Idaho. And you obviously are such help to people who really need it in that elder point of life. It's a real pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for your advice.
Thank you. It's been a joy to visit with you as well. Thank you,
You're
Doug.
welcome. Now it's my honor to present this prestigious award to Susan Graham, a certified elder law attorney in Boise, Idaho, for the outstanding work her firm is doing to help keep moving America forward. Susan, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Doug, for this. And I'm so fortunate to have a support staff that makes it possible for me to be this helpful.
You're very welcome.
I'm William Shatner, and for all of us at Moving America Forward, thanks for watching.